a week. First, an armed assailant attacked a Planned Parenthood facility in Colorado, taking the lives of 3 innocent people, including a campus police officer who served as co-pastor of his church. Then it was revealed that Chicago had been misrepresenting the shooting of an African-American teenager last year. The House voted to block regulations to curb U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. An embarrassing moment for Barack Obama, who was in France at the time, dealing with the environment. Then the Senate voted to repeal Obamacare in its entirety. The week wasn't all bad. Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Dr. Priscilla Chan, pledged to donate 99% of their Facebook shares, that's about $45 billion, to charity over the course of their lives, beginning at $1 billion a year. But then on Wednesday, we were faced with the worst mass shooting since Sandy Hook, the worst terrorist attack on America since 9/11. A married couple, parents of a young child, inexplicably took the lives of 14 innocent people at a healthcare facility. Their military-grade assault weapons were apparently purchased legally in the United States. I'm getting tired of delivering these sermons after tragedy after tragedy. Just 2 weeks ago, I spoke about Islamophobia and the aftermath of the Paris shootings. It's hard to know what to say anymore. We're growing numb to this kind of thing. We're growing inured to the fact that we live in a country without a universal background check, where it is easier to purchase weapons than it is to buy a car, where the CDC is prevented from researching gun violence, where people on terrorist watch lists have every right to purchase semi-automatic assault weapons capable of taking out dozens of civilians in a single clip. America is becoming extraordinarily fearful. Some of the leading candidates for president are raising the rhetoric of Islamophobia and warmongering. There's been talk of restricting the immigration of non-combatant refugees, even children. Some have spoken about closing mosques and registering all Muslims in America, like Jews had to register under Nazi Germany. Donald Trump's poll numbers actually went up when he talked about punishing terrorists by going after their innocent family members, which would make America a rogue nation in violation of the Geneva Accords and basic human rights. As it was intended, all of this bellicose anti-Muslim jingoism plays right into the hands of ISIS, making it that much harder to defeat the Islamic State, as was clearly articulated this week in a New York Times op-ed piece by United States Naval Reserve Officer Haider Ali Hussein Mullik. He writes, "The Islamic State wants every American Muslim to feel alienated. Its false utopia rests on the warped dream that the estimated 3 million American Muslims will believe they can no longer live, thrive, and worship in peace in America. We must not let that happen, even while we remain vigilant about the few American Muslims who wish us harm." He adds, "Now is not the time to shun our fellow citizens. America also needs its Muslim citizens to serve in the military. We need their cultural, linguistic, religious, and geopolitical expertise to help us defeat the Islamic State and its propaganda." Earlier yesterday afternoon, MSNBC correspondent Andrea Mitchell was saying that she's never seen such Islamophobia in her entire career she has seen this week. She was interviewing Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican senator running for president, who was saying exactly the same things that Officer Mullik had written in the New York Times, that we need to work with the moderate Muslims who are in the majority rather than treat all Muslims like terrorists who are in the minority. He said the only way to defeat ISIS was by embracing moderate Muslims, and that it is extremely dangerous to our efforts in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria for America to be perceived as anti-Islam. When we discover, as we did yesterday, that it appears that these senseless killings in San Bernardino were connected with ISIS, it's only natural for us to become fearful. Feelings are real and they're not to be invalidated. Although we may have very limited control over our feelings, we have total control over our behavior and what it is that we choose to do with those feelings. It's important to recognize the fear, but not to be overcome by it and to let it lead to rash decisions. Reb Nachman of Breslov was known to say, Kol ha'olam kulo gesher tsar ma'od, v'ha'ikar lo lefached klal. The whole world is like a very narrow bridge, but the most important thing is not to be afraid. I don't think Reb Nachman actually believed that it's possible not to have fear in a person's life, but rather that we must face our fear with the courage to overcome it together. After the events like Sandy Hook, Paris, San Bernardino, it's easy to succumb to our fears and to feel like there's nothing that we can actually do about these kinds of things. But that's not true. We owe it to ourselves, our community, and our society to overcome our fear because there's so much work that we could and should be doing together right now. First of all, we need to be showing our support for the leaders in our government who have put their political careers at risk to take important stands on gun control and multicultural inclusion. Governor Malloy, Senator Blumenthal, Senator Murphy, our local Congresswoman Elizabeth Esty, and the others have been representing Connecticut's interest in reducing the risk of gun violence and providing a safe haven for refugees to take shelter. They need to know that their efforts are appreciated and encouraged. Secondly, we need to support the important work of organizations who are working hard to make a difference. For example, Connecticut Against Gun Violence has taken great strides to reduce gun violence in Connecticut through advocacy, mostly in the state legislature here. Also, CAIR Connecticut, CAIR, the Council of American Islamic Relations, could use our support in raising awareness about the peaceful nature of the majority of Muslims, especially in America, and the inalienable rights to which they are no less entitled than we are. Then let's not forget the power of the ballot. We need to support presidential candidates who don't use fear-mongering to support their anti-immigration, war profiteering agendas, but are rather willing to take the political risks to put an end to this Wild West mentality that has led to over 350 mass shootings and 12,000 people killed by guns in America this year alone. Of course, there's very little that a president can do without the support of Congress. Just 2 days ago, the Senate voted 54 to 45 against preventing people on the government's no-fly list from acquiring firearms. They also voted 50 to 48 against a better background check. We need to replace these senators with people who care more about children than they do about weapons. The Jewish tradition is to view the world through the lens of Jewish values. We have a value called hoheach tochiach, the obligation to rebuke. Following Leviticus 19:17 and Genesis Rabbah 54, we are enjoined to be social critics when we see that society or individuals are making terrible mistakes. Such criticism is viewed actually as an expression of care for others. We're commanded, lo ta'amod al dam re'acha, not to stand idly by the blood of our neighbors, after Leviticus 19:16, and we must bakesh shalom v'rodfehu, seek peace and pursue it, from Psalms 34:15. When we complete a book of Torah, we say chazak, chazak v'nit chazek, which means basically, I'll be strong for you, you be strong for me, and together we'll create something stronger than either of us could be alone. The next time that something like this happens, and you feel the loneliness, the isolation, the despair, surround yourself by like-minded people who feel as passionately as you do about preventing violence and embracing diversity. And together we will strengthen one another until we endure it to the end, until we overcome our fears, until we empower one another to reverse the trajectory towards the kind of world we'd like to lead to the next generation. Ken Yehi Ratzon, be this God's will.